Hey, what's going on, people? It's SGZ here from the SpartanGameZone, and in this video I'll be going over my Ethereal driver Amara build, which can easily take on the current Mayhem 10, which is going to be toned down in the next couple of weeks, and that bodes even better for this build. I'll be going over the skill trees, letting you know what the important ones are, and giving you some weapons to fill your slots with that synergize well with them. If you enjoyed the video, I'd appreciate it if you could drop a like. It helps make sure that I continue to make videos like this, and let's crack into it. So let's start with the skill trees, and this is going to be a phase grass build because that is much easier to build around thanks to all the anointments we can make use of, and everything's dropping anointed now on Mayhem 10, so you'll be getting a lot of them. The class mod we'll be using to accompany this build is a spiritual driver, as we can get a lot of damage out of it, and the two go hand in hand. And if you're wondering where you can get a spiritual driver class mod, they can only be dropped when you're on Mayhem 4 or above, by Wotan or Celestro. Celestro you can find here in the Tanzania ruins. Back to the trees, and we'll start with this one. I won't be going over everything here, but I will be highlighting the important ones, and the key really with this tree is to get down to Forceful Expression, which gives us 18% bonus elemental damage of whatever our action skill element is, and it's boosted alongside any action skill and anointments we have. It also goes great with the Armageddon Guardian rank, which boosts our damage by 5% for each element affecting our opponents, and this build will give us the option to add Corrosive, Shock and Fire to that list if we want to. Some good skills for getting us there include Tempest and Anima. Anima increases our status effect damage, doubles its duration, and further increases our action skill status effect damage, which we won't be using too much, but when we do, it'll help. Tempest gives us a big boost to elemental damage and a bigger boost to shock damage, which is great. Another key skill we have here is Indiscriminate, which gives our bullets a chance to ricochet, although the ricocheting bullets will deal less damage. The ricochet chance and damage is increased if they're affected by Phase Grasp or Stillness of Mind, and this build accounts for both. We put 1 into Deep Well for a little extra mag size, and then 5 into Sustainment. Sustainment's a great skill which gives us a big chunk of lifesteal when we deal elemental damage, which we'll always be doing. Really, you only need 1 in this because of how much damage we deal compared to our health on Mayhem 10, but there really isn't much else to put the remaining 4 points into. The big 20% lifesteal is a good safety net, either way you look at it. Moving on to the green tree now, and I'll go over everything here. We start with 3 in personal space, which gives us up to 36% bonus damage the closer we are to our target, and there's one weapon in particular we'll be using to make the most out of that, and I'll go over the weapons after we cover the skill trees. To get down to the next branch, we also put 2 into Clarity, so we can have some passive health regen. I didn't put anything into Helping Hands, as 21% damage reduction from our class mod is good already. I then put 5 into Arm Steel to boost our splash damage, which at this stage is multiplicative because nothing else is giving us any, and it also means we take a lot less damage from those rocket launcher zealots. Lastly, we put 3 into Mindfulness, which synergizes extremely well with our class mod. Lastly, onto the blue tree, and there's not too much here. We put 3 into Fast Hands with 1 in Violent Tapestry and 2 into Do Harm. That lets us go down and put the full 3 points into Transcend, making us more accurate and more powerful when hitting crits. I then put 5 into Restless, which increases our action skill cooldown rate. We're not going to need it that much as we'll be fake grasping most of the time, but when we want to boost the ricochet chance and damage among other things like using Ties That Bind, we have it. I then put 1 into Ascendant to make all our augments better, and 1 into Wrath for that little bit extra gun damage, which is additive of course. Speaking of augments, I like Allure, which helps to group enemies up and take them out with a single yellow cake round, but you also have the option to take Stillness of Mind or Soul Staff if you want even more lifesteal. For the action skill, I grabbed Ties That Bind. It's a great skill which helps to share the damage round when you're shooting at whoever's phase grasp, and you know what they say, sharing is caring. Before we go over some weapons we'll be focusing on, let's quickly go over the key items, the first being the Spiritual Driver class mod, and for balance sake I'll be using this one so you can accurately see how the weapons stack up alongside each other. This class mod applies Amara's action skill element to herself every time she uses her action skill, and because it's a phase grasp build we'll be using our action skill a lot. It also gives her increased gun damage the quicker she moves. That's why we're fully decked into mindfulness. We damage ourselves to become faster and therefore deal more damage. In case you're worried, the self damage is minuscule and it also lets us leverage the abilities of a couple of artifacts. An elemental projector which can drop on most artifacts you can find, and the Pearl of Ineffable Knowledge which you can get from a mission in DLC 2. If you're looking for the best one, here is a damage comparison between them. The elemental projector deals its highest damage all the time, but only if we're firing a gun with the element that we're applying to ourselves, which is limited to corrosive, fire and shock. The Pearl on the other hand doesn't deal as much damage initially, but as we continue to be plapped by the Spiritual Driver class mod, we reach our max stacks quickly and it deals noticeably more damage. Not only that, but it works on every gun and is the better of the two, although it will only spawn with 2 passives. Onto guns now, and these may change when the fixes come, but for now the first gun I'd suggest is the Monarch. It's a powerful assault rifle that can come in any element and has both ×4 and ×8 variants, the latter being the best one, and it can only be dropped by Kilovolt, who you can find here at the very end of Electricity. The Monarch doesn't just tick the box of being powerful and elemental, but it also synergizes extremely well with our personal space skill. That's because it encourages you to be close to your enemies. Pulling out its bipod causes you to move slowly, but deal double the damage, and because its pellets are quite spread, you'll find you'll need to be close to your opponents anyway, and that's where we'll deal the most damage. The Monarch can blitz through bosses and crowds of enemies with ease. You're not going to get the gun damage movement speed boost with the bipod out, but it's still your best bet to deal some heavy damage. Without the bipod it's still a great gun, and because of that it's really versatile, allowing you to focus on moving fast and dealing damage thanks to mindfulness, or getting up close and personal and having the 36% damage bonus from personal space. The next gun that works extremely well in this build is the Recursion, a gun that has been in the game from the beginning and has an increased chance to drop from General Taunt. You can find here in Desolation's Edge. The Recursion is a melee 1 gun, which means it always comes in elemental, and there'll be 2 of them that you can change between. That's great for starters, but where it really shines is with its effect that causes its projectiles to ricochet between opponents, dealing more damage the more it ricochets. With a Ricochet Amara build like this one, the Recursion gets catapulted to the upper echelon of weapons. That's because of the increased amount of projectiles you can produce, as each Ricochet has a 30 or 60% chance to duplicate, and then that projectile also has that same chance, and so on and so forth. It really is a mobbing menace and can lay waste to crowds of enemies. It will lag your game though, but generally that's a good thing and means you're dealing massive damage. It can also be great while bossing, but only when there's enemies around to make the most of its ricochet effect. Either way though, it's a great gun on Amara and would be my number 1 pick if I wanted to thin the crowd. Another gun I'd always have in one of your slots is the Yellow Cake, which can only be obtained during the Cartel event by defeating Joey Ultraviolet, Tyrone Smallums or Fish Slap, and the event ends on June 4th. The Yellow Cake is an extremely powerful rocket launcher that can turn pretty much everything to dust, and thanks to Arms deal we make it 20% stronger, give or take. It always comes in radiation and fires a single projectile which splits off into 2 and then 4 a little while after that. When all 4 projectiles hit your target, the Yellow Cake deals monster damage and it can down pretty much any boss with no effort at all. To add to that, it only consumes the 1 ammo per shot, so you can mob with it too. There's really no downsides with it, and I encourage you to wreak some havoc with it before the balancing patch comes. Last up is the Sandhawk, another one of the newly added guns that you can only get from Katagawa Jr. You fight here in Atlas HQ. You can see the trend here, most of these guns are new and are the best in the game. The Sandhawk is no different. It's a sniper rifle that fires 9 pellets at the cost of 2 ammo per shot, and the pellets fly slowly, mimicking the pattern of a hawk, and each of them deals close to 10k damage. It also only comes elemental, and that's great for Amara, and even fully auto, which is kind of unfair and means that its DPS potential is extremely high. However, it is let down by the sniper rifle ammo pool, as you can't use it as long as you'd like, but oftentimes you'll have enough ammo to defeat that boss you're fighting, or get out of some sticky situations when you're mobbing. Either way, when you do have ammo in it, it'll deal some serious damage. So that's the 4 guns I have in my slots generally, but I would put a Calcin and whatever else I feel like using, and really it is up to you. But either way guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope it gave you an idea of what kind of Amara build you can run in Mayhem 10 and perform extremely well with. If it did, consider dropping a like or subscribing, and I'll catch you in the next one.